Margaret and Windsor, and I've been telling you about mind control murders. Well, before '76, but actually trying to write about it. Back then, I had worked for doctors, and the mind control murders I have spoken of have been done in patterns because it's invisible and hard to prove. Now, I've put it up for a long time, and I mentioned Larry Flint being shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia in '78. I was living at Moonraker Apartments, well, Treetop part of the time when Elvis was murdered. I was living there doing the book, and I found out about how ham sets that could be used back then, but it's satellites now that are so your communication satellites. But if you read up on mind control, you can look this up on YouTube. They might not, well, they can't tell you the patterns unless they've stolen it from me, because the patterns, for whatever the reason, were done. And I've told it because I thought people would care. They'd want to know if their child had been programmed and whether he was programmed to go out and kill someone or run his car into the river and drown. They'd want to know, or if he developed cancer, or if they did, using this weapon. MK Ultra was called before Congress way back in '53, I believe. Well, yeah, '53, given a slap on the wrist and turned loose again. Congress has always known about it. If they don't, you better get rid of Congress. And your press certainly knows. They've suppressed it. They're the Illuminati that kidnapped me and took my father down, Edward VIII, down. In 1936, he did marry Wallace Simpson, who was married to my mom, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, from Madison, Wisconsin. She was Queen of England. Wallace Simpson married a double in '37. She was a spy, American spy, not German. She was American. They keep trying to blame Germany for a lot of this, and I want to say this: your people. Okay, let me put it this way, and maybe I shouldn't inject it here. When I lived at Edinburgh Apartments, they were a HUD, low income. I can't even get that. It's left me begging like a place to live. And living a horrifying life. But anyway, I lived in Edinburgh, and you associate that with one of the castles that the Queen lives in. Well, I was kidnapped. My father's Edward VIII. I'm the legal heir. He made perfect arrangements legal. He was forced out with character assassination and lies by these are Jews. I'm just telling you what they did to me. Okay, back up here. I'm not allowed to say that because I don't have any civil rights. The Rothschilds, Bilderbergers. Oh, wow, I'm forgetting this one that controls the banking. Okay. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, okay? Rothschilds were kin to Elizabeth's mother, that was called the Queen Mom rather than a war criminal that she is. So you get Churchill helped Eisenhower, and they're made out to be heroes. And my uncle and Elizabeth, you see the movies, they're heroes. People can't wait in droves while they flaunt their. She works for the Illuminati, but I'm getting back to mind control, and I kind of got away from it there. The shootings. I was telling about them, certain murders, they were done in patterns, and I'm being redundant. It goes back to the Tesla files in 1930. And I bring this up again because Tesla files were stolen, and there was a lot in the Tesla files other than what I was writing about how mind control is used to cure illnesses or create it. This is back in 1930. They cure cancer. They can cause you to appear to commit suicide, depression. You don't even know that you're being programmed. If you did, where would you go? Now, here's what I want to say. Why? In the wake of all these mass killings, and believe me, these people do know, your Congress knows, all these agencies that are getting up there, like yesterday at the shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh, they all know. You better, well, they do know. Let me say that. So yesterday's about coming to a close, all this before it's martial law. Okay, I'm going to just filter through this real quick. I've put it all up so many times. Mental illness is not what these people are not mentally ill. They're programmed. It's mind control. It has nothing to do with mental illness. Way back, Martin Luther King, hey, this great person with civil liberties. By the way, where are all your civil liberties people and all this? You don't hear them weighing in. Talk about civil rights, the right to control your decision making, run your life is controlled by a group of people, or okay, you get the idea, right? That's a gross. And then to commit murder and have somebody else commit it and they pay for the crime. So, hey, that's about as good as you can do if you're into that, okay? So I've put so many up. That's probably all I wanted to say. Mental illness is being blamed for a murder weapon, mind controlling people are buying it because it's easier to pretend it's not happening. It could happen to them. But when I was at Edinburgh, that's associated with the part of the patterns, that things that were done in patterns and fit together. And it's mind control that was used on the person or the group of people, like out in San Bernardino at Virginia Tech, you name it. It's psychological warfare, totally. And then building more mental health, implying that these people are mentally ill. You talk about slander. You're slandering mental illness, the term mental illness, and people who didn't make the choice to be mentally ill. You're calling them, you talk about hate crimes. The part that is sad is you've gotten away with it. That's your press, the Illuminati press that controls all your press, has for a long time. Now then, where am I going with this so somebody doesn't hop on the bandwagon and tell me that I'm old and that I'm not making sense? Maybe that's because you choose to not listen to me, what I'm saying, the text. Anyway, at Edinburgh, finally, after living on the Appalachian Trail and starving, freezing, and by the way, I just about lost my legs out there. And then I'd be blamed for it. Unless it gets into court, you'll never hear the truth. So I moved into Edinburgh, HUD, and the chemicals started. Oh, just pouring out in my room. I didn't even have furniture. But I got people, well, I don't know where they got it, but they gave me some furniture that was there on site a little bit. It was so bad, though. A woman across the hall from me, Carol Rogers Simon, supposedly befriended me. Well, she wasn't a friend, let me say that. No, yeah, okay. But anyway, somebody came to the door by the house, to the door. Anyway, where was I? At Edinburgh. I was so happy to get in there. And the chemicals started. The man, and these people, his wife, they're well known in the Roanoke area. So, anyway, he was the one that was over maintenance and the chemicals being put in there. He even said to me one day, he said, I don't mean to make you sick. Well, what did they mean to do? Because Carol Simon, Roger Simon, said that he wasn't even qualified to. Well, this man had a beautiful home out in Trouttville. Every day when I walked up the old trail, night, winter, summer, fall, spring, begging for food, freezing, starving, with a backpack, when I could have a backpack and a sleeping bag. He had this beautiful home up there on the mountain or hill. It was on a hill up there, all grass around him and some cattle. So that land was really expensive, beautiful home. He saw me every day, knew about me, crawling up the mountain. Now here I'm at the HUD, Edinburgh. The names fits into this patterns. You associate it with the Queen of England, just like her residence, which I don't have, and Moonraker, which later was where I lived doing the book, which later was made into a movie, a 007 movie. They even had, it was about outer space, and it starred Roger Moore. And you associate 007 with the Queen or King. And then following that, this is after I was living at Moonraker. After I lived at Moonraker and was doing the book MD License to Kill about mind control. Timothy Dalton came out, who played 007, with a license to kill. So I was living at Moonraker, and the book was entitled A License to Kill. And it's like the Brits backing me up with a movie with Roger Moore, Moonraker, and then Timothy Dalton, A License to Kill. So nobody is... Anyway, I'll get back to Edinburgh. This woman ended up with my apartment, and the chemicals were so bad that were used that I had to leave. And she told me, here's what she told me. She says, her husband was a psychiatrist. They were divorced, and he was in Seattle. I don't know what she was doing down there, living in a HUD, low income. She ended up with my pots and pans and what few things I'd put together, and got my apartment. She said to me, she says, you're paying for the crimes your family did against the Jews. So she meant by that the chemicals being used on me were like in the Holocaust or used on the Jews. So through my life, me and my children, what she's saying, the crimes that are unspeakable that were done to my sons Mark and Scott, because they're heirs after me. Their grandfather did the right thing, Edward VIII. Wouldn't go along with the Illuminati, which are Jewish. At least a big part of them, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Bilderberger, Roosevelt, the president, great FDR. How about that? So now that I'm telling you about mind control murders, and it leads to the end times, which I didn't know, I'm telling you about Timothy McVeigh having a chip put up him, and he even said the U.S. Army military put it up his buttocks. Then there's, I'm going to go back to this one, because if it's not told now, it won't be. After yesterday and the bombing up in Pittsburgh, the Jewish synagogue, and you're hearing all these people in an uproar calling it, well, I couldn't believe it when President Trump's daughter, Ivanka, they got up there and made the statements and called mentally ill, and what was she saying about... I couldn't believe the words she was using. I really couldn't. They know the truth. Of course they do. I was hoping he was the good guy, and I was hoping Sessions, U.S. Attorney General from Alabama, who knows all this about what happened to me and my sons and to the British, I was hoping he would tell about it and help prosecute it. And that's about all I can say. There was something else other than mind control is a weapon in this, and the man up there that everybody's hating now, calling him mentally deranged and all these things and hate crimes, he was programmed, and he may have had some episodes which were programmed into him. Edward Snowden just touched on the truth in this. And he was run to Russia. I don't even hear about him anymore. If you tell the truth about it, I'm not going to mention the other one who, God help me, I hope he makes it. I'm not going to say his name. For telling the truth, he paid a terrible price for telling the truth. Remember when you go into court, tell the truth, holds truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? That's not what you want. You say that as long as it applies to helping you. And I can tell you, I guess I can be proven wrong, but yesterday is the beginning of the, and you let it happen. It'll be martial law. It's already the United Nations is your global government. So all they need is they've already got chips in most people. In India, everyone's required to have a chip now. And where is the great United Nations? Well, they're the ones doing it. They're the Illuminati, the global government. And I don't know, to use mental illness, an illness, as a weapon. That's what they've done. People that's programmed, they're calling them mentally ill when they're not, and blaming mental illness. And then you go back to Martin Luther King, the great civil rights leader, and JFK, who helped kidnap me. And I did have some articles about that. I don't anymore. But they knew all about this, about the chipping, mind control back then. When I was just about dead in Atlanta, I went to Mrs. Martin Luther King in the headquarters downtown. I had flip-flops. I'd been reduced to that and almost killed. Had a letter from the FBI, ongoing investigation, national security involved. I stood there waiting, freezing, no money. Reduced to, anyway, I just asked to see her. Of course, I'd written the book and had the letter from the FBI and all that. Now then, I wouldn't leave, and I was actually afraid that they have so much power they can just do anything to me. Finally, the guy came out, since I didn't leave, and he told me I had to step outside. It's cold outside. I'm freezing. I got flip-flops on. I'm the Queen of England, really, legally. And he said, look, I don't know if he said look. He said, we know about mind control. He then told me he said Ms. King was too busy to see me. He said that he used the South Africa, which was British and part of the takedown of the British Empire, by Reverend Andrew Young, who was the mayor appointed by Jimmy Carter as to represent the United Nations. And he went to South Africa all the time with very involved in what happened there, trying to tear down the British. And here I am. Okay, they've known about me. So anyway, this man says to me outside headquarters, works for Mrs. King, sent outside to take me outside, don't let anybody know the truth about all this, right? He said they did know about mind control, and that some professor or doctor in South Africa was a friend of theirs, and he went to a dentist. When he come back home, he took a flying leap. He had a root canal, and that's where they put the chips a lot, and he'd gone flying into the wall. It can give that much momentum and power to a person. And it crashed his, I can't remember what he said now, his face